devil. Chris's mother was a satanic worshiper, and one of her evil doings was the murder of her own husband. Years passed before Chris spoke out, and the result was a murder conviction of her mother and current charges against Mom's boyfriend. Chris knew of Mother's awful act and her link with Lucifer, but was too afraid to talk because her mother had told her, "Don't speak of the devil."
I live with this nightmare every single day. I still live with it, and I will till everything is over.
Chris Gooden is 23 years old, but since the age of 15, she struggled with a nightmare, dark secrets of murder, of Satanism, and the truth about her mother, Jeanette. It began 10 years ago. Jeanette had divorced Chris's father and was living with another man and her 4 children. But she still found the time to steal away the boy next door. He was Chris's boyfriend, Michael Tracy. He was only 17 years old.
I couldn't figure out how my mom could do something like that, taking her daughter's boyfriend away from her. You just don't picture your mother doing something that crude.
After an argument with Michael Tracy, Jeanette decided to marry her live-in lover, Jim Stewart. But soon after the front yard ceremony, she took up with Michael Tracy once again. Only this time, her romance with the youngster was on the sly.
When Jim was coming home and they saw him, Michael would duck out the back door as Jim came in the front door.
In time, Jeanette, Jim, and the 4 children moved away from this house to another home. But getting away wasn't enough. Jeanette decided that she wanted out of her marriage, too, at any cost.
I think together they concluded that the best way to carry on this relationship was a Louisville Slugger divorce. I hate to be crass about it, but instead of going through the regular divorce process, to kill Jim, and that's what they did.
On February 7th, 1982, Jeanette and her 4 children sat around the dinner table with Michael Tracy. It looked like a typical American scene, but this was to be no ordinary dinner.
It was just a normal conversation, it just popped up. Let's get rid of Jim. Let's get him out of the picture.
And that's where Mommy's dark preoccupations led to the ultimate evil.
They were going to hit him with a bat is what finally come up. And my mom was trying to get into Satanism and devil worshipping and stuff, and she needed a pentagram drawn. And she already drawn on the basement floor so she can go on with her spells or whatever. And she couldn't draw it, so the plan was to have Jim go down and draw it. Mike would be hiding underneath the staircase. And when Jim bent down to draw the pentagram, Mike would come out and hit him in the head with a baseball bat and kill him.
The 4 children, ages 9 through 15, sat silently, listening, terrified, following Mother's training to be seen and not heard. But the plan for a satanic execution failed when the intended victim said he couldn't remember how to draw a pentagram. That's when 15-year-old Chris was forced into the act.
Michael came upstairs, went into Chris's bedroom, asked Chris to call Jim from Jim and Jeanette's bedroom into Chris's bedroom so that Mike could then conceal himself and whack Jim as he walked by.
I didn't know what to ask him for, I called him in, what do I do now? So I asked him for a hug and he gave it to me.
That's on the way back from Chris's bedroom into the master bedroom that he got hit with a baseball bat.
I covered my ears with pillows, all of us did. And there was a point when the blows had finally quit. And Jim was laying out in the living room. You could hear him gurgling, like he was drowning in his own blood. And I felt very guilty, like I had something to do with his killing. That will probably always live with me because that's the way I felt. If I wouldn't have called him in, he might still be alive.
Chris insists she was only acting out of one emotion, fear of her mother.
Did you think to warn Jim?
I thought about it, but the way my mom was talking, you could see this look in her eyes. And whenever you saw this certain look, you knew they'll mess with her. So if I would have told Jim, who knows that they wouldn't have just gone right down the line. Chain reaction, kill one, kill all.
When the killing was over, Mother ordered the kids to clean up the mess.
Mike backed his car up to the back door and loaded Jim's body into the trunk along with the bags. And all of us kids got in the back seat, and Mom and Mike were in the front seat, and we drove to Central City. And Mom and Mike had carried the body up the hill and threw it in the mine shaft with Jim's belongings. Mike poured gasoline over everything and lit a match. And then Mom told us not to say anything to anybody of what had happened, not even to Grandma, which lived 2 blocks away. And we never said anything.
Jim's body was discovered 10 days later. Mother Jeanette asked his uncle to drive her to identify the remains.
We viewed the body together, and then she broke down and cried. And she kept saying that nobody should have to die like this. She said that she was the prime suspect in the murder because she was a spouse, and the spouse is always considered the prime suspect in a murder. And I just asked her, "Did you kill him?" And she said no.
When the police asked questions, Mother stuck to her story.
She wanted us to hear what she was telling them, so that way if we were ever asking questions, we'd go by her story.
Jeanette terrorized her children into silence by threatening them with the vengeance of Satan.
She had said that if anything was ever said, that we would all think Satan was in town. Maybe she can place a hex on you or something. You know, I didn't want to push it. I didn't want to mess with it. I was very afraid of her, extremely. And I would wake up in the middle of the night screaming. After I was with my husband, I'd wake up screaming, and he couldn't figure out why.
Chris stayed quiet for 7 years, despite the fear, the nightmares, and the guilt. But then, one day, she met a man she hadn't seen in more than a decade, and a simple question from her natural father was enough to break the satanic silence.
My little dad asked me how Jim was, or how's Jim doing? And I said, well, stepdad Jim is dead. And he said, did your mom have anything to do with it? And I said, yes. That's all that was ever said. And he told me, he says, well, I'll take care of it. And evidently he did something, because it wasn't too long after that the authorities were at my home. That night, I slept like a baby. I slept like I haven't slept in years.
Last spring, Jeanette was arrested and charged with the murder of her second husband, Jim Stewart. This month, she was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Her daughter, Chris, helped put her away, reliving on the witness stand that cold, sleepless night in 1982. And Chris will relive it once more this winter at the murder trial of Michael Tracy, her boyfriend turned stepfather. Even so, she says, she sleeps better now because the worst of her nightmare is over.
It's a relief having that burden gone, and especially having my mom behind bars. She was my threat. My threat's gone. The person I was so afraid of cannot hurt me now in any way.
Michael Tracy has pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder. Halloween is creepy, and we're celebrating the strangeness